The whispers of Burkittsville. The camcorder's screen flickers with static in my darkened apartment. 3:33 a.m., always 3:33 a.m. when the footage starts playing by itself. My hands shake uncontrollably as I watch, unable to look away, unable to stop the playback that haunts my every night. The doctors say I'm safe now, that I'm hundreds of miles from Burkittsville Forest. But distance doesn't matter anymore. Not after what we awaken. The footage begins normally, deceptively mundane. Sarah adjusting audio levels, her face still bright with enthusiasm. Mike confidently marking our route on his map. But now, watching it again, I can see what we missed, the shadows that moved against the wind, the faces in the bark of the trees, watching, always watching. Our first night, the forest felt wrong. The darkness between the trees was too thick, too absolute, swallowing our flashlight beams like hungry mouths. The temperature dropped so low our breath crystallized, even though it was August. We huddled in our tents, trying to ignore the sounds, not animal sounds, but something worse. Something that knew words it shouldn't. It started with our names. Whispered from the darkness, in voices that sounded like children playing with broken vocal cords. They knew our middle names. Our childhood fears. The lies we'd told. The secrets we'd kept. Each whisper grew closer, until they seemed to come from inside our own heads. The footage shows how it evolved. Every morning, we found new gifts, those twisted stick figures, now arranged in positions that mimicked human torture. Dead birds laid out in perfect geometric patterns. Messages carved into tree bark that disappeared when we tried to film them. Messages that told us what we'd dreamed the night before. The GPS showed we were walking south, always south, but the sun rose in different directions each morning. The trees, they moved when we weren't looking. We'd turn around and everything would be different. Paths that were there a moment before would vanish, replaced by dense forest that looked centuries old. Time began to slip. Sometimes it would be noon, then suddenly midnight, with no memory of the hours between. Then came the laughter. Not children this time, something pretending to be children. Something old that had forgotten how humans should sound. It echoed through the trees, accompanied by the snap of branches that formed perfect rhythms, like some cosmic music we weren't meant to hear. Our cameras caught shadows dancing in impossible ways, elongated figures twisting through the branches like smoke. The night Mike vanished, we found his camera. The footage showed him walking backward, his movements jerky and wrong, as if someone had hit rewind on reality itself. His eyes were rolled back, and his mouth moved in words we couldn't hear. When we played it with Sarah's sound equipment, we heard it, hundreds of voices overlapped, speaking in colonial-era English, describing exactly how we would die. Sarah disappeared next. The footage shows her last moments, her flashlight illuminating that impossible house. But what I never told the police, what I couldn't tell them, was what the enhanced audio picked up. Sarah wasn't screaming at something she saw in the corner. She was screaming at her own reflection in the window. Her reflection that moved independently, that turned to face her with eyes that glowed like burning coals, that reached out through the glass. The footage changes every time I watch it now. Sometimes I see myself in scenes I know I wasn't in, standing motionless among the trees. Sometimes I see Sarah and Mike in my apartment, standing in the corners, their faces hidden in shadow. The whispers haven't stopped. They follow me, telling me things about the future that keep coming true. Last night, I finally saw what was in that upper room. It wasn't facing the wall at all. It was facing the camera the entire time, wearing Sarah's face like a mask, its real face visible underneath, something ancient, something that smiled with too many teeth. And as I watched, it reached toward the camera, toward me, its fingers elongating through the screen. The authorities will find this footage tomorrow. If they find it. If tomorrow comes. Because right now, at 3:33 a.m., I can hear children laughing outside my door. And footsteps in my ceiling. And Sarah's voice, calling my name from the corridor, asking to be let in.
But Sarah never made it out of those woods. And the footsteps are getting closer.